The workshop was about capacity building towards strengthening disability-inclusive SDG monitoring and reporting with the following objectives. 1. Engagement of the departments responsible for SDGs and disability issues to sensitize them on issues of disability-inclusive SDGs monitoring and reporting.
We need to ensure that those who are marginalized, women suffer double, discrimination as women, in fact triple, as women, and also as women with disabilities, and then as...
No, women with disabilities suffer triple marginalization.
Yeah.
Women suffer, I know someone was saying gender equality, but we have to recognize that women with disabilities suffer triple. There are many layers.
There are many layers.
Yes.
So you can also think about the intersectionality of all those factors, which then compound, the exclusion.
I'm glad you're talking about validation. I heard you talk about validation. I think that's an important mechanism of giving feedback to citizens and to the groups that were consulted.
All the clusters and the presentations, they are all SDGs, right? Saka inini ndikuda kunyanyotaura SDG number 4. SDG number 4 ye quality education. Kuona kwandiri kuita ma-developments aripo, especially to the PWDs, ari kunyanyira to the accessibility, to the infrastructure, nemabhimu, but pari kudawo accessibility the deaf and the blind. Ndiri kutaura kuti tikada kutarisa kuma local schools edu, kuma locations edu. For example, in my location, there are 9 primary schools. Tisingatoverenge nema-private colleges. But hapana chikoro chinodzidzisa sign language, even one class at a school. Mambotaura kuti pachaitwa sign languages kuma teachers, inofanira kutrain kuma teachers. Even Braille, kuitira kuti not all of people can afford kuendesa vana like kuEmerald Geo. There are some people vanofana kudzidzawo kuma local schools edu, but because hakuna accessibility sign language kuma teachers, Braille to the blind. Saka I think kuti there is need kuti kuma locations edu, kuma communities edu kwatinogara, at least ma government schools awanewo ma teachers kana kuti my classes at each school kana pakawana even one class for the deaf and one class for the blind. Nokuti Emerald U, for instance, it cannot accommodate the whole Harare or the whole community. Saka I think per education ipapo ndaona kunge tiri kunyanya ngofocusa kuti of course infrastructure inogona kuitika kuti panowanikwa accessibility yemaramps and chi, but kuti vamwe vedu vaone education in a low affordable fees. Like kuma primary schools at local schools, they go for 30 years, 40 years a term.
2. Review of the current SDG monitoring framework 2019 to 2025.
Now we are talking about partnerships. We need to have equal power sharing, power balances. How do we address the power imbalances between persons with disabilities and other partnerships? How do we encourage participation? How do we consult? How do we ensure decision-making processes we are involved and influence decisions? So these are some of the principles we should build a partnership. Once these elements are missing, I don't know whether you can call that partnership.
Taking the example of SDG 6, which is the right to clean water and sanitation, was mentioned by a colleague here. When we look at the International Covenant on Economic and Social Cultural Rights, it specifically says right to safe drinking water and sanitation. When we talk about the right to health, we can't have the right to health if we don't enjoy clean water and sanitation. And equal access to water and sanitation for rural women, which is in the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. So you can see we have SDGs 6, but there are already 2, or at least I've just mentioned 2 covenants here, but there are already a number of international human rights covenants which will speak to that same right. That same SDG.
From Kwekwe. Here we are in Kadoma, the Kamirida organization, AU DC. AU DC represents African Union Disabled Chapter in Zimbabwe. We as people with disabilities, tinema challenges atinofesa sevanhu vakaremara, so tikusangana nechallenge yekuti mumachurches umo mapastors they preach to people vachitora verses from Bible, which is not wrong, but the way yavari kuzotranslate kuvanhu to call names like chirema chakazoti kana kuti bofu rakazoti rakazodai bofu rakazodai mukati meBible. Imagine a person with a disability ari muchechi umomo anofila sei because tirikunzi isusu those names atifili zvakanaka names iwawo achitaurwa, so tiri encourage kuti people my pastors in fact titaure zvakanaka kana in terms of kana tichipreacha titaure zvakanaka. Another issue tiri pa madef machurches tiri kuoneka kuti hamuna machurches medu hamuna ma-interpreters. You find kuti panozova ne big challenge yekuti interpretation machurches inenge isimo, so those guys vane problem hearing impaired havazowanikwi vachiuya kumachurches because panenge pasina ma-interpreters. So we encourage kuti if we know in organizations vanoita nezve sign language vainvite machurches vakwanise kutidzidzisa mapastors maelders tikwanise kudzidza sign language so that we can interpret kana takasangana nemunhu kana kuti achida kuuya kuchechi we can interpret for them because vanenge vachitodawo kuuya kuma churches ikoko. Achitamba